Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the Pork Queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama. From the Brady Dental Care Studio, I am Justin Brady, and today we're joined by Jessi McQuerrey, Director of Programs for the ABI Foundation. Jessi, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Justin. It's been too long, my friend.
So before we get started, everybody, remember, we are bringing you incredible Iowans every single week here on this show. If you're not exhausted of that and you'd like to hear from more Iowans, you need to give this show 5 stars and subscribe. It's on every podcast platform. Sometimes I get asked, who cares about 5 stars? Not vanity. Like, we don't actually care about that. But what it does do is it tells your podcast player to serve this up to like-minded, smart Iowans. So please do that. So, Jessi, I appreciate coming in here. Business Horizons is going to be the main topic, but we're going to talk about Iowa workforce, future ready. We're going to talk about students and high school students, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about the Leadership Iowa programs. But let's start with Business Horizons. For Iowans who don't know, is there like a 30-second elevator pitch on what Business Horizons is?
Absolutely. Well, and it's hard to put into words in 30 seconds, Justin.
No
so
kidding,
we could talk for another 30 minutes about this, and we will. So that's really exciting. So Business Horizons is actually Iowa's longest running program of its kind for high school students, grades 9 through 12, in the state of Iowa. So what we do for 4.5 days, we bring students together from all corners of the state, all experience levels, backgrounds, interests and career areas, and we bring them together to team up and give them a really awesome entrepreneurial experience. So we allow these students to collaborate together on a project that they care about and solving a problem in a creative way. And so for 4.5 days, they put their heads together and they launch this mock business and go into competitions like a pitch, a infomercial, and a trade show. And we do a lot of other things in between our HR activity, working with the students on how to be young professionals, how to develop themselves as young Iowans ready to take on the next step regardless of what it is. So it's a magical week, and we love to work with students all across the state because they are going to be our future leaders. So it's amazing to see what they can do from day 1 to day 5. And just seeing their self-esteem and their confidence build is incredible. So lots of future-ready skills all built into those 4.5 days. And doing it just in a really hands-on way. We're not sitting these students in classrooms all day. They're getting out, they're working together, they're experiencing the power of collaboration and coming together because of their differences and not despite of them. So very, very cool stuff.
And what I want to say about that is right now everyone's talking about the future of work. And that the future of work changes like every 50, every 100 years. It's always changing. And one of the big concerns that a lot of people have now is AI, right? And so a lot of people are, and I could do a huge thing on AI and why the fears are way overblown and why it's actually going to lead to a creative revolution, more and better jobs. I could go on that for hours, but one of the interesting things you said is that you're training some core ideas like problem solving, working across a diverse set of groups, solving problems. Aren't these kind of core skills that are needed to work in an AI future workplace?
It's honestly skills to work in any workplace. And what we're seeing just across the state and across, the world and across the country is we need a future workforce who can do these things. Regardless of what technology they have access to, whether it's AI, we know that this is going to be around. So how do we work with it? How do we make the most of the technology and the resources that we have in order to prepare our people for the next step and what those jobs of the future look like? So, I mean, at Business Horizons, we talk a lot about entrepreneurship, but we know that the skills that go into entrepreneurship are really applicable to any career. It is problem solving, it's collaborating, it is critical thinking and being adaptable and being flexible and discovering your resources and using the tools that you have in order to, you know, take the next step and solve problems together in a productive way. And it's not just about creating entrepreneurs and creating students that want to own their own business, although that's great. We need more of that as well. But also creating those entrepreneurs. So those individuals that are going to go in and work in our workplaces tomorrow and are able to solve problems in that way and to bring new ideas to the table. So those are the skills across the board that we're hoping to lift up, and all of the strengths in these students that we hope will come out during Business Horizons.
And you guys did a programming change. I know it was more than a couple years ago. Maybe it was 4 years ago. 4 years, 3 years ago?
Yeah.
I'm guessing here. Because now I should say I've been involved in Business Horizons. I've been an advisor at Business Horizons. I've spoken about stuff at Business Horizons. I'm a huge fan. And I think the biggest, I think a lot of parents don't really understand the value this has. And a lot of students don't understand the value this really does have. When you really see it from the inside, I can say it's incredible. But so like, was it 3 years ago, you guys added a tech track. And then that tech track ended up working its way into all the other tracks. Can you describe that transition?
Yes, and that was actually the goal of the tech track, is that we were bringing this component of technology and the almost ways of thinking. So we did more of a pitch from the very beginning. So coming up with those creative solutions or the problems that really mattered in tech. And then that group of students worked on a project from there. And in our first year, Justin, I don't know if you remember this, but we had a student who was hammering out the code to their brand new app the night before in 3 days.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
That was wild. I do remember that.
Right? And we saw that happen and we thought, how can we not allow the rest of the students to be able to do something like this? And so when it came competition time, it was almost hard to compete because you have this actual prototype of something. And that group also infused a little bit of the design thinking components and the process that we now use within Business Horizons. So just really allowing students to experience that 30,000-foot view of, you know, this is one framework that they can use when they are problem solving, which is design thinking for us. And we use the business model canvas. That was another piece that we infused a few years ago, and showing students that, yes, it's good to go into a business with a business plan and have something, but assume that it's fluid, assume that it's going to change and you're going to continue to collaborate on this, and that you need to keep asking questions and learning from your customers and learning what they need. So it really sparked this, this really strong idea of students want to create something that they care about. They are fully capable of coming up with unique solutions with very little hands-on or very little direction from the people around them. They're creative, they're smart, they're going to figure it out. And that's what we've seen the last few years, is giving them more autonomy to do what they do, and it's been amazing.
Now, during the time of the tech track, was every student a coder in that thing? Did you have to be a coder to be in that? No,
they just had an interest in technology, but we really opened it up to if they were interested in graphic design, if they were interested in kind of problem solving in a different way. And that's what we see from our students. At Business Horizons, a lot of students look at the title and they think it's going to be a business camp and it's going to be really lame. Well, we know it's not lame, right? And
I honestly thought it was going to be lame, but then I helped just because I believed in it. And then I'm like, holy crap, I wish I would have known about this when I was a kid.
Right? It's so fun. And we actually have a lot of students who are interested in the STEM fields and technology. We have a lot of students who come to us who are interested in healthcare. That is one of our top 3 career interest fields for students coming into Business Horizons. And again, it's that innovative problem solving and being able to collaborate and communicate with others and seeing how much that you have to rely on your team. That is one of the things during the week that I think comes out really strongly in these students is some of these students are used to being the leader within whatever group project that they're working on in their schools.
Sure.
And they realize that they can't do it all. So they have to delegate.
I love watching them like struggle through that. These people that are, you know, some of these students are very type A and they're very strong-willed, and they start to realize after day 1, oh, I'm in trouble.
Right?
So
I have to rely on my team. I have to rely on these strangers that I just met yesterday. And it's still amazing. And we have a lot of tears on the last day because they made some incredible friends that they're going to be spread miles and miles apart once they go back to their hometown. But a lot of them, thanks to technology now, get to stay in touch with each other. So we hear a lot about just friendships that have developed over those 4.5 days because they go into the trenches together on this project and they accomplish more than what they thought they were going to be able to. And just some amazing relationships blossom out of that.
Yeah, it's cool to see them come in. Like, this is going to be lame. You know, like my parents told me I had to come, or someone's sponsoring me, grandma's sponsoring me, I have to come, something like that. And then they, like that first day, like I would say the first several hours, you know, there's the announcements and stuff, and they're like kind of slumping in their seat, like whatever. And then 24 hours later, they're like, please never end.
Right.
It's hilarious. I never really grew up like past high school. Like I physically kept aging, but in like mentally and intellectually, I never kept aging. So like in some ways, I feel like I'm qualified to talk about this. I'm pretty juvenile still. So why I ask about the coding thing is because a lot of parents believe that, and I don't like this message, but a lot of people are saying like, if you don't know how to code, you can't live in the future, in future work, in the future economy. And what's super funny about that is within only like a 10-year span of people saying that, AI is writing code. Like AI, and it's writing very good code from just simple prompts. I've seen this happen. I mean, there was a local Techstars company. They're called Gamma now, or they're not local, but they were in the Iowa Techstars community. They were called like Appsy and now Gamma. And all you do is like in a little search bar, you write, build me an app that does this. And it just does it. And then it's like, and I want it to do this. And then it does it. And it's like, that's the future. Mm-hmm. And so I'm almost thinking like, if you want to go into coding, that's great. We're going to need great coders, but like we need people that understand the core things that you're training, the problem solving. I think they call it a prompt engineer. I think that's going to be a new job, is a prompt engineer, to know how to work with an AI. Mm-hmm. And so if you understand design thinking and problem solving, what we really need is design thinkers, people that can problem solve, people that can find those connections across seemingly completely unrelated fields, people that come from the arts, people that know how to creatively collaborate. That's what we desperately need, and that's what you guys are doing, which is super exciting. You mentioned some interesting patterns. I want to move on to that. Mm-hmm. Healthcare. You mentioned a lot of students are developing healthcare solutions, and what's interesting about this is they all come up with a product, you said, but the products are like marketable. Like this is real stuff that can push to market. So what are some, you said healthcare is a pattern. What are some patterns you've seen developed over the last 2 years? Right.
We really opened it up, yes, in the last 2 years to where we said, just talk about within your groups what problem you see every day and what do you want to solve? What's most important to you? And I would say last year, it got a little heavy at Business Horizons on day one. Okay. Every single group talked about mental health. Oh, yeah. Every single group. And it's hard because we have some really incredible volunteers like you, Justin Brady, who are our advisors throughout the week. So these are business professionals, and we typically assign 2 to 3 to each group. And they're coming in to work with these students, as you know, like they would their colleagues, and just shepherd them throughout the week. So these students were in here pouring their hearts out about the mental health crisis in the state of Iowa. And our advisors just sat there thinking, okay, we need to have a therapy session for a minute here. We need to unpack this.
Wow.
So it took a little while almost to move on from that, because the students had to disseminate, okay, here are all of these problems that we're seeing in our schools and that we're facing ourselves. We're burned out, we're tired, we're overwhelmed. And so it took a minute for them to come to their solution.
Right.
But all of the solutions that we saw at Business Horizons last year had some type of mental health type. Every single one of them.
Oh, my word.
Yep. Something about either just restructuring their day, getting themselves more organized so they would have more time for outside activities or to decompress. We had some that just had a very fun component to it and the feeling of community. But it was all of them really stemmed from that overarching theme of mental health. So it was interesting to hear how students were really battling that, but then how they thought we could solve it. So again, it just goes back to these students are really smart and they're really creative, and we just need to be listening to them, really.
Yeah.
And all of these, when we bring in our judges at the end of the week and in talking with them and debriefing with them, it was, we would absolutely invest in these. And some of the products themselves could have partnered together or joined together on something. And, these are things we're going to see in the next few months. And some of them we already see. And the students just had this idea from day one. So it's really something for everyone. And, kind of going back to the jobs that we need, even with this technology and with AI, we need the communicators between the two. We need some to say, okay, this is what our business is saying, and this is what technology needs. So where are those? What are those? I'm married to one of those people. And that it's incredibly important to be able to speak both languages and to be able to listen and understand. 100%. And I think that's something else that we're seeing out of these students is that they're taking this major problem and now they're coming up with the solution and saying, you do this, you do this, you do this among their own teams. And it's awesome. It is great to see that we have these students that are already thinking in this way, and then they're going to go back to their high school and do it there too, and go into their community. And, in small town Iowa, we need these students that want to stick around, and all across the state, but we need students that want to stick around in their communities and solve problems like this.
It's this beautiful blend of, and I wish we had more of this in the workplace, honestly, but it's this beautiful blend of younger students that have no idea like what specific tactical guardrails there are in the workplace, which is good. But then you have adults that have had the snot beaten out of them by their bosses for years, and they tend to say no to everything. Like, we should do this thing. Those adults are kind of the older you get, you're like, no, we've already tried it. Oh, we already, it's totally shut off. So you see this collision where students want to solve the entire world's problems tomorrow, and adults are like, oh, we've already tried that, so you see this amazing tension, which is super great. I wish we had more of that in the workplace. But you do, there were some students, for example, I remember in my group that wanted to world peace or something like that. And I was like, look, there's nothing wrong with that, but how are you going to make money? And they all looked at me like deer in the headlights. Well, we don't need to make money. That's silly. And I was like, okay, fine. Then maybe you're making a nonprofit startup. How are you going to get donations? Still deer in the headlights. They're like, oh, crap, we need actual revenue to do this stuff. We either need customers or donors. But they hadn't thought that through. And so when they realized, oh, yeah, we need to actually fund this, we can't all be volunteers, then that changed. They started to change the business model with those new restrictions and those new guardrails, right? So to see that create but what really happens is sometimes they create these huge ideas. And then as the adult, you come in, or the person with experience, and you're like, well, have you considered this and this and this and this, thinking it's going to derail them? And they're like, yeah, we have. Here's how we're solving that. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Look at that.
Watch out.
Right. And so there needs to be that balance. Business Horizons almost forces the adults to be a little bit more forgiving, because you need to allow the students to learn. And the result is some truly incredible and sustainable startup ideas. But sometimes in the business world, we don't listen to the interns and the younger people because we don't have to. Right. That's not part of the programming. And you can see the result of that. The bigger an organization gets, the more hierarchy, the less innovation that comes out of it. And so it's really a fascinating model. I am curious. I've been watching like Shark Tank lately. It's been years and now they're like catching up. And what's interesting is there are young people on that show now. And I'm not saying like teenagers. I'm saying like very young people that get up there and pitch, like 10 years old, and they know their numbers, they know the business model, they can handle the objections from the sharks. Are you seeing like entrepreneurial culture push younger, and is that impacting the Business Horizons program, do you think?
I think so. I think we're seeing that across the board with all of our programs, Justin, even our college and our adult program. We are seeing more and more of kind of those younger professionals being lifted up and pushed into these positions, and which is great. And more of those voices being brought to the table, which is absolutely something we need to do. And I will say that within this last year, and we try and get the word out any way we can about Business Horizons and the opportunity to take part in the program all across the state. And we have received a lot of questions about, well, my son or daughter is a little younger than ninth grade. Can they join? I think they're ready for this. And they may very well be. We're seeing more opportunities within our schools across the state, not everywhere, which is why Business Horizons is so important, because we need to continue to bring students together to have at least this equitable experience, because we know that some students in some communities are getting one experience and in another they don't maybe have that opportunity. Yep. And so that is why Business Horizons is so important, because it's open and accessible to all students. But we are seeing younger and younger students having more opportunities or seeking more opportunities like this, whether it's an internship or a job shadow. And I think that's almost the hardest thing to juggle, because what are the resources within those communities that can really connect them to those opportunities, whether it was, the Iowa Intermediary Network or Iowa Workforce Development or, their educator or counselor themselves. It's a big job to get these students exposed to these opportunities. And so I think we are seeing that younger and younger students are seeking these experiences at an earlier age. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's good for them to explore and experience. They figure out what they like, what they don't like. But we are seeing a lot of students prepared for exactly what we're throwing at them at Business Horizons. So it's really cool, because they're able to flex their muscles and get out there and succeed or fail in a really safe environment with us. And so that they're able to go do that out on their own later.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing a huge rise in interest, but based on the community you might be in, there's not a lot of resources in general, countrywide, to feed that interest. Right? It kind of relies on the student and the parent to say, like, well, are there some YouTube channels? Is there a local club that can do this? And in many cases, the answer is no. And so that is definitely a huge gap that you're filling. So you're also a part of Leadership Iowa, because that's another program you manage. You manage I think you manage all of ABI, and then everyone else does eats Cheetos. Just kidding. Now I've immediately, your entire board is coming for my head now. But so one of the things, because you see now Leadership Iowa, Business Horizons is high schooler through 18, something like that. Like if you're graduating, if you just graduated, you can do it. But Leadership Iowa is what?
All adults.
Yeah, adults. And you have to be graduated, 18 plus in the workplace, that kind of thing.
Yes, and beyond college. So we have Leadership Iowa University, which is our college program. So students just have to be enrolled in an Iowa college or university, or they have to be interning for an Iowa company over the summer. And so we see a lot of companies sending their interns. We are seeing a huge rise in interest in that program, as you might imagine, because companies are able to invest in what they hope to be their future employees. And so we take our college students, we house them here in Des Moines for 4.5 days in August. And it actually happens 2 weeks after Business Horizons. And we show them a lot of cool things in Iowa. So
because you're a glutton for punishment.
Right. We love it. We love it. You know,
that's a lot of work for you, though.
Oh, it's fun. I mean, the ABI Foundation, we are all about bringing Iowans together to experience all the cool things about our state.
And we're about that on this podcast, too.
Exactly.
So what are the gaps you're seeing then? Because you see, this is interesting because you get a great picture of students all the way through young adults, all the way through career with all your programs. So you can probably see, well, I'm assuming you can see, like gaps. Like, here are the things that we're working on students with right now because we know these are needed in the workplace. But also at Leadership Iowa, here are the things workplaces are sending people to us for, and here are the gaps they have, or here are the skills they don't have. So what are those gaps that concern you a little bit?
That's a good question. Well, one of our biggest charges within our programs is really just taking down the barriers. And what I mean by that is bringing people together who are spanning across the state who would never otherwise cross paths. Whether it's just because they're on opposite sides of the state of Iowa or different regions, different backgrounds, different industries is also a big thing with Leadership Iowa. You know, our number one really piece of selection and component to our selection process with that program is diversity. And for that, we mean we want to bring together all of these people with different experiences and different mindsets who would never normally cross paths. And then you just see 40 different light bulb moments. And you see how close they get over the 8 months that they're with us in this program. And, you know, it wouldn't happen otherwise. And I think it's almost sad that we're only able to take 40 every year to do this, because then they realize that, hey, this is actually awesome. And we could actually be solving way more problems if we just collaborate and we had access to XYZ and this mindset or this industry. And so those 40 people get that experience. But how do we expand that opportunity across the state? And our Leadership Iowa program, you know, we bring leaders who are already leaders, probably already went through an awesome community program, have some type of leadership training that they went through in their company or wherever. And we just show them the issues and the opportunities all across the state. And so we expose them to communities and community leaders who are solving problems in a different way that they might be able to bring back into their communities to be the problem solver themselves or to start the conversation. So I think the more we can do that and the more we can encourage that across the state, the better off we can be. We've got some issues in Iowa. I think if you put a survey out and all Iowans actually responded to it, whether you were thinking everything was amazing or thinking everything was terrible, you know, we might land somewhere in the middle, whether you're actually informed about the issues or not. But I think the more informed and the more we can bring every voice to the table to have these conversations and to come up with these solutions and to figure out what's actually going on across our state, I think the better we can be.
So last minute, right? One last question for you. Is the state of Iowa, organizations, people who are all about work culture, about getting, filling the workplaces, are we taking, and this is not a political comment, because one of the things on this show is no drama, right? There are many aspects. There are private organizations, there are businesses, there are organizations like ABI, there is the governor's office, there is, you know, the state house. But collectively, are we taking the coming skills gap, like preparing these students, high schoolers right now, for the future workplace in Iowa? Are we taking that seriously enough, do you think? Or do we need to seriously consider how to build them up?
I think we could do more. I think we can continue this conversation. And what is really great, and what I am seeing with other programs and organizations who do somewhat similar work to what we do, we all complement each other really well. The programs that are, whether it's in school or outside of school, that are trying to really generate this next generation of workforce and get them ready and get them developed and get them exposure earlier than any of us had when we were in high school.
Yep.
We have been having a lot of conversations about how do we not necessarily recreate the wheel. How do we collaborate together? How do we marry our programs in which they can go through all of them? They can have all these experiences, and our students feel like a well-rounded, prepared individual for whatever that next step is. So that is really, really exciting, but I think we're on the early stages of that. I think we're going to see more and more creative thought and creative programs, and it's trickling into our high schools too. I know that our schools in Iowa are looking into more entrepreneurship education, which is awesome. And that's at the Department of Ed. And they are doing some incredible work in saying, how do we get exposure to these students that are both in and outside the classroom that also are looking at these other programs, and how do we get our students more involved and more engaged in what our communities are doing? And so I think it's an even bigger issue than just our workforce. It's how do we populate our communities all across the state of Iowa and make sure that they are thriving, not just in the next 2 years, but 5, 10, 15 years down the road.
Because I see big ideas from students that I've never seen before, right? I see big, because they have the internet, they're very connected, they can do research. But the big concern I have when I'm seeing students these days, and I saw it at Business Horizons too, so thank goodness these students were at Business Horizons, is a lot of parents just assume kids know tech because they're on TikTok and they know how to use their phone. And so they're just like, well, kids know tech. We don't have to, and we don't have to worry about that. And then some students who at the time we were writing articles in one of our groups, and they didn't know how to type. And I was like, wait, whoa, hold up. What happened? So I've been reaching out to a lot of educators, and they're like, oh yeah, students do not know how to type. We are not putting them through basic typing courses because there's this assumption in some arenas that, well, they know all about tech. We don't have to train this basic tech stuff. And so I'm like, oh my word, they are really great in the idea department. But students, I think right now, are struggling with the execution department, how to bring that idea into reality. And as in my personal experience, that's one of the things that Business Horizons does. It says, look, these ideas are great, but they're only ideas. And the ideas have no value until you know how to execute on that and bring it to the market, period. Right. And so, Jessi, I honestly, any parents listening, any students listening, this is mandatory. I'm forcing, no, just kidding, I can't do that. But I would highly, strongly encourage anybody to sign up for this. It's at Drake University this year, so it's central in the state. How do parents or students sign up for this? What's that website?
Absolutely. BusinessHorizonsIowa.org. So they can head online and they'll click the apply button, which is really just a registration form for them. And we've got a discount running. So $50 discount until May 29th. And it is after May 29th, it's $400. Which is, so we've heard.
Still a steal. I mean, it's still a steal, honestly. I can say. Because it includes food and lodging and all this. It's still a steal. Yeah.
All of that great stuff. So students get so much out of this program. And I would agree. It is, I would say it's mandatory. I think students, and I may be biased.
I'm going to send Jessi to knock on every Iowan's door. You're going to do a full Grassley.
You know, and it is exactly what you said.
That's so funny.
We have students that come in and they think, I was forced to be here by somebody. Don't make me cut you off on this
podcast. I know you could go 4 hours on how great the show is, or how great the program is.
They do want more. That's what I'm here to say, that it is an amazing experience. So thank you for letting me share.
Jessi Stewart, Director of Programs for the ABI Foundation. And of course, Business Horizons is coming right up. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Justin. Happy to be here.